Well, another day, another narrative exposed. The left has been pushing the idea that President Trump is overreaching by using emergency powers and decades-old laws, but the argument is starting to fall apart. In a recent episode of Jon Stewart's podcast, this exact point came up during a conversation with Ezra Klein. Stewart tried framing Trump's actions as dangerous, but in an interesting twist, Ezra stepped in and corrected him, pointing out the Democrats do the exact same thing. Today we're going to cover it all and share with you a CBS poll that proves John wrong. As always, please make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this.
What I'm seeing in the Trump administration, right, is that they've got historians and legal scholars combing through the history of this country, finding whatever Byzantine or abstract emergency power. It's the Illegal Enemies Act. It's the, we used this once in 1813, trying to get some native tribes off of land. They're using powers that have been granted under emergencies to do sort of day-to-day governance things. And I don't like it, but is there anything to be learned from this for people who have more liberal aims and progressive aims?
Well, there you have it. The left's new argument against Trump is, get this, using old laws. Like murder is an old law, so we should do that, right? Since when did this age of a law determine whether it's valid or enforceable? A law's a law whether it was passed last week or 70 years ago. If it's still on the books, it's still in play. That's how a functioning legal system works. You don't get to pick and choose which ones you feel are too old to count just because they're being used effectively by someone that you don't like. Tom Homan had the best reaction to this nonsense argument, saying this.
You say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process.
An old law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
But some would say this is...
How many more times?
Yep, this isn't a retro fashion trend. It's the legal foundation of the country. If a law is outdated or problematic, there's a process for changing it. It's called legislation. Gather support, build a movement, and get it repealed or amended. But don't act shocked when a president uses existing ones to advance a policy agenda. That's literally their job. Surprisingly, Ezra took a balanced approach and pointed out that the left also relied on the exact same strategy when they're in power.
And I do want to say, to be fair, that Democrats do this too. If you look at things like Obama's immigration executive actions, if you look at things like the student loan actions, Democrats are actually pretty good at this move as well. You go and you find a sort of
emergency power,
vaguely written word in a law, right? Like, we had something to deal with public health and now you're using it to change immigration law. Okay, but an interesting thing that I noticed while reporting out case studies here, and then I have this whole thing about Josh Shapiro and the I-95, and he uses an emergency declaration.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're doing rapid rebuilding under emergency declarations after the fires. If you guys are all so proud of what you can do under these emergency authorities that wipe away all of this process, and you can get these things done fast and people like it. I mean, this is like the fundamental basis on which a lot of Shapiro's political renown is built. He's not known so much for policies as he is for getting things done fast, right? His whole line is get shit done. Well, then what does that say about the non-emergency procedures?
Exactly. The same logic applies to the backlash Doge is getting. The left is throwing a tantrum, not because the laws are being abused, but because they're being used efficiently by someone they don't like. Like it or not, executive action is far quicker and more than waiting around for Congress to pass a bill, which can take forever, especially when gridlock is the norm. And let's not act like the left hasn't played this game before. Take the Obama-era DACA program, for example. It was implemented through executive action, using broad interpretations of existing immigration laws to shield hundreds of thousands of deportations. Whether you agree with the policy or not, it's a textbook case of using old laws to push a modern agenda. It seems like the thing becomes a problem only when Trump does it, and we start hearing arguments like outdated laws or overreach. Even CNN couldn't ignore the facts this time. They analyzed a poll by CBS asking people whether they believe the president is genuinely doing things differently and if they think there's a case of overreach in his actions. Honestly, the results speak for themselves, so let's take a look at what the numbers actually say.
How are people reacting to and feel about Trump's approach?
Yeah, okay, so Trump's approach here, what are we talking about? Trump's approach to presidential power. I think the American people recognize what he's doing here is completely different. We're talking, get this, 86% of the American public believes that Trump's approach to presidential power is completely different from past presidents compared to only 14% who believe it is in line with precedent. And we're talking about at least 79% of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. So again, you can agree or you can disagree with Donald Trump. But what you can't disagree with is that he's doing things very differently. I have used the Frank Sinatra quote before. He is doing it, quote unquote, my way. And that is what Donald Trump has done throughout both of his presidential terms. And he's certainly doing that, Kate Baldwin, in term number 2.
If you throw out all the noise and look at the reality on the ground, one thing has become clear. Trump might be one of the most effective presidents that we've seen in decades. It's been less than 2 months since he took office, and already the impact is undeniable. He's greatly helped in actually trying to solve the southern border crisis. He unleashed DOGE, which is already uncovering waste and saving billions in taxpayer money. And on the foreign policy front, he's holding direct talks with Russia and Iran and has brought the topic of trade imbalance to the forefront, something most presidents only mention on the campaign trail. And the tariffs he enacted have already brought several countries to the negotiating table. But the most interesting part of the CNN segment was when they looked at the overreach numbers, and the results, well, they're shocking to say the least.
Do the people think he has too much, but he's taken too much power?
Yeah, this I think is the real question, right? You can believe that he's doing stuff completely differently, but do you think that he has a little too much power or not? And this is interesting. So Trump's presidential power is too much, the right amount, too little. Well, 47% say too much, but then you get 36% who say the right amount. Then you get 17% who say too little. So you're essentially dealing with a majority of the American public, 53%, who do not say that Trump has too much power. They either says he has too little power or the right amount of power. So the idea, that argument that Donald Trump is, quote unquote, a king, that I don't think holds with the American people. It does hold maybe with 47%, but with the majority of folks, they believe Donald Trump's doing something completely differently, and they don't believe he has too much power. And the executive orders he signed certainly suggest he's no lame duck. He is, as I said at the beginning, a soaring eagle.
That is interesting.
Drop a like if you think the disappointment in Kate's voice is hilarious. Just think about the irony here. The MSM has been running a relentless campaign about how Trump is some kind of a dictator, pushing endless panic about how he's supposedly dismantling democracy one executive order at a time. They've praised activist judges like they're our saviors, only to look at polls that show that public isn't buying it anymore. Americans are waking up, and it's clear that the media's propaganda is falling flat. To wrap things up, we have Scott Jennings proving why the left's argument about Trump overstepping his powers just doesn't really hold any water, and he did make some valid points.
Dan, you keep saying that we'd be upset if a Democratic president violated norms. Brother, last year, Joe Biden was asleep and Kamala Harris was at a dance party with Beyonce all year. You violated norms for the entire year, and it's one of the reasons that Donald Trump won the election. Norms were violated for 4 straight years. And yes, I didn't like it. But Donald Trump, in my opinion, is not exceeding his authority under the Constitution with this violence.
Listen.
And this is what it all boils down to. Like Ezra mentioned in everything we detailed in this video, the left has been using these exact same tactics for years, but now that it's the right doing it, they're acting like the sky is falling. It goes to show how their approach in politics is based on this saying, rules for thee, but not for me. Love to know your thoughts here, so let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. And if you want your friends to get some independent coverage from a source like us, please share the video with them. It means the world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.